McDaniel was fired as head coach of the Dolphins. Today, they have a new general manager. They're hiring Packers VP of Player Personnel, Jon-Eric Sullivan, as their new GM. ESPN NFL insider Jeff Darlington adding that Sullivan received high recommendations from people in Green Bay, most notably Matt LaFleur, who works with him daily. Sullivan's interview is described as exceptional, and the hiring group, including Troy Aikman, was unanimous in that decision. Now, here is the CV on Jon-Eric Sullivan. He's been working for the Packers since 2003. He's been there forever, most notably vice president of player personnel since 2022. And his dad, Jerry Sullivan, longtime college and NFL assistant coach, he retired in 2021 after a second three-year stint with the Cardinals. We have a full house today. Hello, Swagoo. How are you? Yeah. Great. Oh, yeah.
What's up, y'all?
Sending the vibes
What's
to you
up?
as well. I want to start with Dan the Man, though. What was the reaction when you saw this hire?
Yeah, I love the fact that he's been in Green Bay long enough to realize or witness the two most important people you can have at your building at the highest level. He's been there when they had Mike McCarthy win a Super Bowl. He's been there when they hired Matt LaFleur, who's been one of the best coaches in the NFL since that hire. He was there when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. He was there when they drafted Jordan Love. So just having somebody in that role that knows what it sounds like and feels like, and what the interview process is like, what the evaluation process is like. I'm not telling everybody that this is going to work the exact same way as it did in Green Bay, but I do love the fact that he has that in his back pocket of, well, we got to sit down and interview a coach that we think is going to be great. Does he remind me of Mike? Does he remind me of Matt? We need to evaluate a quarterback. Okay, that quarterback's got a lot of the same traits that we realized with Aaron and Jordan Love. So I like that he has that experience.
An organization that has a lot of steadiness, not only at head coach, but at quarterback, and both of those are questions in Miami.
Well, this one does not have a lot of stability at the quarterback position. I think, first off, you have to look at this roster and see where you need to rebuild. Understand that you're going to need a new quarterback. You're going to have to build on the back end in the secondary and find some extra rushers as well. And then you figure out, do we have the assets to do that? How do we get from under this contract with Tua Tagovailoa? And then it's, after you assess those things, who is your next head coach and how do they see the roster and what do they want the roster to be moving forward? I agree with Dan. He understands team building because he's seen a team built at the highest level. So he knows where to start. But this is obviously from a different perspective than it ever was in Green Bay. In Green Bay, you move from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. That will not be his situation starting in Miami.
There was a foundation already. He's got to establish that in Miami.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the toughest job for a GM to walk into. You got a quarterback where you owe $99 million. You got to figure out what you do with your highest paid wide receiver as well. I know we haven't talked about Tyreek in a while, but that's a decision that has to be made. I don't know the contract situation. And then both of you guys talked about it from a team building standpoint. The one thing that they have to establish in Miami is, what do they want the identity to be? You got no head coach. What's your philosophy? Is the philosophy that you saw in Green Bay going to be into play? Is that your litmus of how successful organizations are ran? And I'm not even talking about behind the scenes. Green Bay has always been a team that wanted to establish the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball since I've been in the league. That's something that they took a lot of pride in. And both of you mentioned stability. It's another organization where you really don't hear much coming out of that place outside of when we heard about Aaron Rodgers and what they went through with there. But as far as players, they seemingly take care of their draft picks that earn it that way. And I'm making that reference to Green Bay because this is the way that you have to operate in Miami. The one thing I am happy that Miami realized, and it's not about Mike McDaniel losing this job, they realized that this needed to be a teardown. And they didn't want to live in that gray. And that gray, to me, is the worst place you can be in the NFL. You either or, and you're not determining what the next step forward is. So this is one of those moments where you would look to this organization and say, there's about to be a new course correction here in Miami. And for a general manager, Jon Sullivan, walking into this, he has a lot of work to do, probably more work than most GMs have to do, because most of them walking in them situations are drafting or they walking in the spots where they still trying to figure out the situation.
It's hard to imagine.
Culture is going to be big, though, Hannah. This place needs a culture overhaul, and it's difficult
100%.
in places where the sunshine and the parties are good.
I was just going to say, it's hard to imagine two more different cultures, two more different venues than Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Miami, Florida.
Yeah. I'll go down there and be their GM. I'll leave Green Bay and go to Miami and be a GM.
Okay. Green Bay loses a key member of their front office, but listen, their immediate concern is this wild card game tomorrow night against their longtime rival, the Chicago Bears. They split the two meetings this season. The latest one was without Micah Parsons, of course. Interestingly, the Bears never led at one point.
That's wild.
Yeah, in either game. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Obviously, they win with a walk-off touchdown, right? Caleb Williams in overtime, that 46-yarder. Chicago, though, if you're really breaking this down, they've been better than Green Bay in the red zone and really down the stretch in those meetings, but that was Chicago's MO all season long. And this is just in new on NFL Live. Packers wide receiver Dontavian Wicks has been downgraded to out.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, one less weapon there for Jordan Love. As we bring in Mina now. Hi, Mina.
What up, MK?
How are ya? Great to be with you on this Friday. Now the gang's all here. This is great. Okay, RC, so we talked about Jordan Love. Listen, he missed the final couple of games of the regular season. He's back. What do you need to see from him in this one?
Well, Jordan Love has to go win. When he watches that film of the first game, he's going to understand the mismatch he had with his wide receivers versus the back-end skill players of the Chicago Bears. They did anything and everything they wanted to for 3 quarters. How do they get back in that same space? How do they attack leverage? How do they attack coverage, run away from outside defenders? And we saw that throughout that game. It was a different attack with Malik Willis. We saw the run game be the focal point of Matt LaFleur. I believe that the Green Bay Packers can do whatever they want offensively against the Chicago Bears. It's going to be about protecting the football. And as you saw in that second game, even with Jordan Love, finding ways to score in the red zone because those points are huge, especially with the way Chicago plays late in football games.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick. I know we got to let the GM build this team and Dan Orlovsky. Listen, RC, this is going to be early pressures, all right? I believe Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator for Chicago, has to get some favorable down the distance on third down. Green Bay leads the league in yardage on third down, and I'm sure that leads to a bunch of conversions, but also getting them into third and long situations gives you that ability, like the Chicago Bears defense has been doing all season, of creating those turnovers. So it's going to be interesting to see first and second down if there's some early pressure to try to get these guys behind the sticks and force Jordan Love into a mistake.
I think what's so tricky, though, Marcus, for Dennis Allen is this Bears defense doesn't get pressure, right?
Yeah.
And the first time they played, he blitzed them. Ryan alluded to this, played man coverage, and Jordan Love absolutely shredded it. When he was blitzed, he went 8 for 11 for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the second time around, before Love got hurt, Dennis Allen completely changed it up, played way more zone coverage, didn't blitz, and Jordan Love shredded that because his pass rush doesn't get home. Something I would try if I was him, emphasis on try, is I would try to simulate pressure. Green Bay does this more than Chicago. Love is a very aggressive thrower of the football against the blitz. So if you can make him think pressure is coming and then maybe drop some bodies into coverage, you have a better chance of coming away with one, which is really the only way the Bears defense has success. But it is an uphill battle because this defensive line has not been giving quarterbacks much trouble.
Yeah, we've talked about, Marcus, by the way, 28 seconds, fastest segment you've ever had, big dog. So I'm proud of you. We're obviously heading into the playoffs being our best.
I almost raised my middle finger on this show. I almost just raised my middle finger on this show, boy. Go ahead. Hey, give your take. I don't need all the extra.
Please
I don't need the extra. Give your take.
Just to put into context, we've talked about the turnovers, right, with Chicago's defense. Chris, you could throw it up because I do think there's a little bit of like historical impact right here. So, one, they take the ball away, all right? But they don't give the ball away. That's plus 22. So that's a huge deal in this game, and that's not just treetoppy. 10-1 when they win the turnover battle. So that's going to be a big deal. Hannah, when it comes to Caleb Williams, he has to have his most consistent game of the season. When you're playing against zone defenses, you just have to remember Gary Kubiak saying, somebody is always open. You just have to find them. And last week against Chicago, he on a consistent basis, Detroit saw zone, and instead of just playing that boring brand, that efficient brand, that completion-centric brand of football, there was too much inconsistency. And so I think it's huge for Caleb. Don't try to do too much. Take what the defense is going to give you. You know that Green Bay is going to give you some of those underneath completions. And if his mindset is just making sure that he is completion centric and find that open receiver instead of forcing the open receiver, I think he's going to be okay. To understand, first and second down against this Green Bay defense, they play just about as much zone defense as anybody. There is going to be someone open on first and second down. Take the easy throw.
I think the big difference is there was some pressure last week versus Detroit. This team is not creating pressure in that way since Michael Parsons went down. And so Caleb can do some of the things where he holds the ball, scrambles around, and allows people to get open, I think, in a little bit different way than he could versus Detroit.
His very first playoff game. All right, as we take a look at our first wild card picks, we have a split. We have Mina, Dan, and RC taking the Packers. Swagoo and I are on the Bears. Swagoo in 28 seconds or less. Swagoo, why are you on the Bears?
Hannah, don't start that. I'll go a minute and 28. I'm on the Packers. Look, I think they'll get that. I think they'll get that run game going. I think Chicago understands that if they are not that formidable offensive unit carrying the football, they don't have a shot at winning this game. They don't want to make this a drop back game all game long. So Monungai and Swift should have big days if they're gonna win.
And they're 26 seconds.
He's hot.